I apologize for the lack of jumping up and down and celebrating, but spoiler alert, there's no new Grey Cup Champions gear. However, it wasn't all lost in my dream season, as I did at least get my consolation Grey Cup. Anyway, it's time for another episode of Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here. Welcome to my bonus episode of my Calgary Stampeders this month. This is going to wrap up Season 2 here. Wow, I've been doing this for 2 full seasons. Season 2, Episode 8 here, and all this episode we'll talk about is the 2019 CFL Playoffs and the 107th Grey Cup. And sadly, the dream season did not happen. We did not successfully defend the Grey Cup and kept it at home. The dream still continues on the Calgary Stampeders winning the Grey Cup at home. I mean, you could say I'm a little spoiled here in the last 25 plus years that I've been following this CFL and the Calgary Stampeders here, but it would still be nice to win one at home, and who knows when's the next time the Grey Cup will be right here in Calgary. But still going to recap the Calgary Stampeders on how they did in the playoffs, and I'll recap the 107th Grey Cup game there. And if you followed my On the Road to the Grey Cup series videos where I recapped each playoff game, you have an idea of how the bracket played out. But now we're back on the my Calgary Stampeders this month here, and ultimately afterwards I'll give my final thoughts on the season and what the future has in store here. That do we realistically think that Calgary is still going to be a competitive team, and maybe win the Grey Cup next year in Regina? And I'll give my confidence pick on, this guy be in Regina for the Grey Cup next year. But it was still a great week. It was still a great party. It was like the Stampede in November, because everything was at the Stampede Park, and it was great. That's why I love this game and love this event is, get to see everyone who comes from all over the country representing their colors. This guy always represents his red, regardless if we're playing or not, and I do feel an obligation when I represent my red that I gotta, be the best person I can be representing Calgary Stampeders, and I feel everyone has done that. Every year at the Grey Cup, it's always the home team and Saskatchewan that I see the colors the most. Which is going to be interesting that next year, the Grey Cup being in Saskatchewan, and then if I have the opportunity to go, I'll be seeing nothing but green. But it'd be nice if I see green in terms of the 50-50, as those always have nice jackpots. But yeah, it was definitely a great weekend, and it was a great game once I get to recap that. And you'll see why when I said I got my consolation Grey Cup. And thanks to everyone who came to Calgary and took in my hometown and represented their colors of pride. And let's get on with recapping the games here, shall we? So bring up my notes here, and for the last time for Season 2, let's recap the Calgary Stampeders here. So the first round of the playoffs happened on Sunday, November 10th here. These were the semifinals here. The first game was the East semifinal in Montreal, Percival Molson Stadium. At 11 a.m. Mountain kickoff. Had the Edmonton Eskimos go into Montreal, and the Edmonton Eskimos actually defeated the Montreal Alouettes 37-29 here. So that meant the Edmonton Eskimos were going to go off to Hamilton to take on the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the Eastern Final here, and one of the things that I always kept dreaming about since the crossover has started, where if one team in one division had a greater record than the third place team, in this case the Edmonton Eskimos had a greater record than the third place team, fourth in the West, third in the East, and the Toronto Argonauts, they cross over and take that spot in the playoffs. So I kept thinking, wouldn't it be awesome if we ever had a Calgary-Edmonton Grey Cup? And the dream of that started going into the Western semifinal as the Calgary Stampeders were taking on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, second year in a row that the Stampeders and Blue Bombers face off in the playoffs at McManus Stadium, but this time it was for the semifinal here, and it definitely was a cold game. It was -15, and Bo asked for a cold weather game, but once I get into it in a minute here, maybe he will take that back. And the other big story is that Kamar Jordan, he drew back into the lineup for the Calgary Stampeders after being hurt since Labor Day in 2018. So that's how it started off here. So, Winnipeg had the ball first here and only produced a first down here, so nothing came to be out of that. Calgary did have their ball on their first play here, and things actually looked good early. That was actually the first big play on this drive here, as Bo Levi Mitchell stretched it out the field and looked for Josh Huff deep in Winnipeg territory. Did not get a catch there, however got a pass interference. So Calgary was able to move down into Winnipeg territory, first and goal here. And Calgary eventually did run in the touchdown on a third down play where Reggie Bagleton received a run there, and he had to beat Willie Jefferson in the process. The play didn't look good at start there. It looked like we were to march all the way down to the Winnipeg 1 yard line and got nothing, but eventually Reggie Bagleton, great individual effort there, ran around and run it in the end zone, and point after, Calgary had a 7-0 lead early here. So that looked good early. After that, I got to say, most of the first quarter was a defensive struggle. Ultimately, this game, both defenses definitely stood up well in the first half here. Not too sure if the cold also affected the offense for both sides here, but I'm going to say that's how it was like much of the first quarter. However, late in the first quarter, Calgary looked like they were driving deep into Winnipeg territory again. However, there was a pass to Josh Huff, but it was like a dog fighting over a tire. And ultimately, it was ruled as an interception deep in Winnipeg territory. So Calgary, came up empty there, but had a 7-0 lead after one here. Second quarter, the defensive struggle continued here. It wasn't really that exciting of a first half here. There was a couple plays there on both sides, but definitely doesn't help when it's cold outside. But Winnipeg got on the board early in the second quarter here as Bo was deep in his own end zone and actually got rolled with a dental grounding because he threw the ball away. There was no one around, and eventually he conceded a safety there. However, that was a second down play. Calgary, I think, ultimately would have conceded a safety on the next play anyway on a punt because Calgary would have been punting deep in their own end zone. And Janarian Grant, their Winnipeg returner, definitely has their number, and he was already standing at midfield there. So Winnipeg got their first points on a safety there, regardless if it was a play before. It was controversial when it was called there, but I looked at that. Calgary would have given up 2 points anyway 10 seconds later. So it was 7-2 Calgary 3 minutes into the second quarter. On the next drive, after the Calgary conceded safety there, Winnipeg got the ball there and marched it down the field, and Justin Medlock kicked a 34-yarder. So it was 7-5 Calgary near the midway point of the second quarter here. Later in the quarter, about 4 minutes to go, Justin Medlock and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were able to get within field goal range here. Justin Medlock has a long leg here. He actually made a 50-yard field goal, so for the first time in the game, with 4 minutes to go in the second quarter, Winnipeg had an 8-7 lead there. And after the 3-minute warning here, Calgary had the ball here, and they were driving into Winnipeg territory. And eventually, Bo Levi Mitchell was able to connect with Reggie Begelton. This time, Reggie Begelton scored a touchdown his traditional way with a 19-yard connection here, point after, and Calgary had a 14-8 lead at halftime here, and that's how things stood here. And other than Calgary making a few plays there, I mean, both offenses definitely didn't stand out in this game. It was definitely a defensive struggle here, but it was still anyone's game here. Calgary had the lead by 6, so how did the second half come to be? Well, this is where things definitely turned, and not for the best for my boys here. As the third quarter, Calgary started off the ball, but opened up with a 2-and-out here, so already the offense looked like it was sputtering here. Winnipeg on their first drive was able to get the offense going with a combination of Andrew Harris and Chris Streveler, as that was definitely their bread and butter in this game. On their ground game, eventually got the running game going, and it was a 33-yard option play to Nick Dembski, who ran a 33-yard play in for a touchdown here, and an extra point gives Winnipeg a lead at 15-14 here with 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. And it just felt deflating, because Calgary's offense definitely did not look like it was getting going, and it just felt like at that moment the Winnipeg Blue Bombers got some momentum there, and it looked like Winnipeg was literally going to run away with this one. And fortunately, things eventually got in that way, because the third quarter, Calgary Stampeders couldn't get anything going on the offense, and the Calgary defense definitely kept them in it, but I felt like we were barely hanging on, as Winnipeg had a 15-14 lead after 3 quarters there. So Calgary did not score any points in the third quarter here, and Winnipeg got their first, big lead of the game here. Should also note here that Bo Levi Mitchell, he did not have a passing yard at all in the third quarter here. So this is where the debate was the right call to keep him in, or should they put Nick Arbuckle in? That's one of those what-if questions here when we look back at this game here. And that Bo did not have a passing yard at all in the third quarter. Winnipeg had the ball late in the third quarter, and it continued going into the fourth quarter here as Justin Medlock scored another field goal from 42 yards. So Winnipeg extended its lead to 18-14 early in the fourth quarter here. After a 2-0 Calgary, after that field goal, Winnipeg came back with another quick touchdown score. This time, Zach Collaros was able to find Dembski again. But this time, he scored it in his traditional way on a 71-yard touchdown play there. So the point after, suddenly, it was 25-14 Winnipeg here. Next drive, Calgary was able to get a first down. However, Bo threw interception there. Winnipeg on that turnover, on that interception, Winnipeg was able to get more points on a Justin Medlock field goal, 45 yards. So now it's 28-14 for Winnipeg with 7 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. Things were not looking good for the Calgary Stampeders here, and it continued not looking good. Because after Calgary got the ball threw an interception, another interception right away, killing any hope of comeback and keeping the Grey Cup at home. And there was also a roughing on the interception return here to add insult to injury. Calgary took a roughing penalty, so Winnipeg had the ball right on the Calgary 24-yard line. So Winnipeg had great field position from the interception and the penalty here. I should say, Bo definitely struggled this whole game. It looked like he wasn't throwing the ball to his receivers. I'm not too sure if it's the goal or wasn't able to throw him up high enough, but it seemed like when he threw it up high enough, someone in blue was catching the ball, not in red. So with Winnipeg on the Calgary 24-yard line, on the next play, Chris Streveler, he ran in the backup quarterback, who, kudos to him, he had a broken foot going into this game and probably had some painkillers injected into him so he can play. But he looks fine on this play as he ran a 24-yard rushing play in for a touchdown. And the point after, Winnipeg was up 35-14 here with 5.5 minutes to go here. So this is when suddenly people were going for the exits here, especially the red guys here. But I stayed to the end. It's the CFL, but it didn't feel like we were going to win this game. And Winnipeg had much of the ball in the final 5 minutes and ran up the clock and kept on the ground. And ultimately, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers won this game with that score 35-14 here. So with that win, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers advanced to the Western Final to take on the Saskatchewan Roughriders for the second time in a row in Saskatchewan, but this time it's the Western Final to get to the Grey Cup. So Winnipeg had a chance to win in Saskatchewan to come back to Calgary. So that's how the Western semifinal stood out. To go over some numbers here, definitely weren't very pretty here. Bo, he was 12 for 28. He did not throw for 50 yards passing. He only threw for 116 yards here. Got that one touchdown, but 3 interceptions here. This definitely was the worst game that I saw Bo Levi Mitchell play, and Bo himself said that was the worst game he's ever played. And I mean, I still support Bo. He's human. Sometimes it happens that we just don't have a good game, and I still got faith in that. We'll still have better days with Bo, just not on this particular day. However, rushing, Calgary was weak in rushing all season here, but Don Jackson had a decent game with 8 carries for 63 yards. The receivers here, well, Josh Huff, he was the lead receiver. He had 6 catches for 66 yards. I'd say he definitely had a great rookie season there. And then he had that pass interference on him, so he almost could have had a 100-yard game here. And if there wasn't that tire, Josh Huff definitely could have had double the yards if there wasn't that tire fight there, dog tire fight I recall it. When both the receiver and defender had a hand on the ball there, but it was ruled that Winnipeg pulled it away at the end there. Reggie Bagleton, well, he was 2 for 24 in yards, so he definitely wasn't as busy, but I don't think he received too many good passes. He had 1 touchdown, plus that 1-yard touchdown run. On the defensive side of the ball here, well, Winton McManus, he had 8 tackles. And Nate Hawley, who I'll mention right now, he did win the top rookie. He had 7 tackles in this game. And then Lorenzo Jerome, he actually had 130 all-purpose yards and kickoff and punt returns here. I think he had a great game, considering he wasn't the regular returner. So those all the numbers I can give for the Calgary side of the ball here. Winnipeg side of the ball here, well, this definitely is going to tell the story here. Well, Zach Collaros, he didn't have too spectacular of a game. I think he looked better in the final game of the regular season there, but he was 11 for 21. He had 193 yards, 1 touchdown, so he had an alright game. But what killed the Calgary Stampeders was on the ground here is Chris Streveler. He actually was the leading rusher in the game here. He had 13 carries for 80 yards and a touchdown here. Nick Dembski also on the ground had 3 rushing yards for 53 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. And then Darvin Adams was the lead receiver. Actually, I think I missed a mistake in there. It was Darvin Adams that had that long touchdown there because he was 2 for 105 yards, including 1 touchdown there. So I think I missed mistaken that Dembski had the run. It was Darvin Adams that had that long 70-yard touchdown catch there. By the way, it wasn't pretty, and my Stampeders lost this one. On the defensive side of the ball here, Brandon Alexander had 5 tackles here. Mike Jones, Mark Madsen, and Marcus Sales all each said thank you very much to Bo Levi Mitchell, with each had an interception each. Justin Medlock, he was 4 for 4 in field goals, and the 52 yards was his longest one. So that set the stage for the finals the week later on Sunday, November the 17th. He had the East Final, which he had the Hamilton Tiger Cats hosting the Edmonton Eskimos. And Edmonton had that "Why Not Us" moniker because it has never happened where a team who crossed over went to the Grey Cup. However, the Grey Cup would not feature an Eastern crossover team. And the crazy thing is, when Edmonton is more west than the other 2 teams in the Western Final, but that did not happen, as the Hamilton Tiger Cats defeated the Edmonton Eskimos 36-16 in that one, as Hamilton definitely showed to be the better team here. And so Hamilton will represent the East in the 107th Grey Cup, looking for their first Grey Cup since 1999. In the Western final here, we had the Prairie Battle here. This definitely was a very, very entertaining game here. Saskatchewan did not capitalize on any opportunities here, but it definitely had a very interesting finish here. You can go back to my On the Road to the Grey Cup videos. But ultimately, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, they continued their playoff run here as they defeated the Saskatchewan Roughriders in Saskatchewan. And that was the same time for both games. The East final started at 11 and the West final started at 2:30 both Mountain. Winnipeg beat Saskatchewan 20-13. And we'll be going back to Calgary for the Grey Cup. And Winnipeg was looking for their first Grey Cup win since 1990. So if you would have told me Calgary was not going to be in the Grey Cup, the one in the Grey Cup I did actually wanted to sell for was the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Hamilton Tiger Cats Grey Cup, because you had the two longest Grey Cup droughts facing off each other, as the Winnipeg Blue Bombers were looking for their first win since 1990, and Hamilton was looking for their first win since 1999. And also, if you go back to my On the Road to the Grey Cup playlist there, where I previewed the matchup between Hamilton and Winnipeg there, both teams have been to Grey Cup games and lost. Some in heartbreaking fashion in some cases here. So something had to give. Somebody had to win. I'm going to say ultimately both fan bases were crying. One was crying because they were so effing happy that they finally won. And another, I definitely saw some fans on the other side, they definitely took the loss a lot harder than I did when I had my heart broken in Ottawa there. So anyway, as I promised on the last episode of my Calgary Stampeders this month, I was going to recap in depth the 107th Grey Cup game, and that's what I shall be doing here. So on Sunday, November 24th, was the 107th Grey Cup. It was right here in Calgary at McManus Stadium with a 4 p.m. kickoff Mountain time. The Grey Cups, I mean, all the playoff games are all the same time. I give Mountain time because that's where I live, so you can do the time conversion here. So I said it featured the West champion, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the East champion, the Hamilton Tiger Cats here. Winnipeg was technically the home team, but they actually elected to still wear their whites, and as for superstition there, so Winnipeg was wearing their whites, while Hamilton was wearing their blacks, even though they were the road team here. So I did capture some videos here. So the Beaches performed the kickoff show. It was definitely a nice little pop rock band there. So that was the kickoff show. So after the Calgary Stampede show band and the Jets, one jet that flew over Big Man there, I also have that video. Let's talk about the game itself here. So Winnipeg won the coin toss, but they deferred here. So Hamilton had the ball first, and after the first down, Dane Evans, the quarterback for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, threw an early interception that Brandon Alexander picked up. But Winnipeg did not capitalize on the first turnover after that. However, Hamilton on their next play, they fumbled the ball, and on the next drive that Hamilton had was recovered for Willie Jefferson here. So early in the first quarter here, Hamilton had the ball twice, and they ultimately turned it over here, which definitely is going to be a big storyline in this game here. So on that drive, Winnipeg deep in Hamilton territory eventually got their first touchdown here on Andrew Harris on a 15-yard run. So on the point after, it gives Winnipeg a 7-0 lead early in the first quarter. So after getting a couple of turnovers, after getting taken away, they capitalized and took an early 7-0 lead here. That's after the first two drives ended in a turnover for Hamilton there. However, on the next drive here, Hamilton actually was able to get their offense moving, and they scored their first points of the Grey Cup on a Liam Hartler field goal from 44 yards out. So they answered back with a field goal, so it was 7-3 Winnipeg, 7.5 minutes into the game here. On the next drive, Winnipeg was able to drive the ball down, and they attempted a 48-yard field goal here that Justin Medlock actually missed. However, Winnipeg was able to run down the field and put pressure on the returner on Frankie Williams, so eventually he conceded a safety there because he's dangerous that he can return it out and potentially give Hamilton great field position and maybe score a touchdown because he's done that before. However, he conceded a single, so Winnipeg picked up one more point on that missed field goal with 6 minutes left in the first quarter, so it was 8-3 Winnipeg there. With about 3 minutes to go in the first quarter, Hamilton, for the first time, actually this happened more than once. With about 3 minutes to go in the first quarter, Hamilton was stopped on a 3rd and short by Winnipeg's defense. And Hamilton put up their 3rd turnover of the game there. So Hamilton definitely was struggling with the Winnipeg defense there early, where they either threw an interception, they fumbled the ball, or they got stopped on a 3rd and short. And I'm going to say right now that was not the first time that happened to Hamilton in this game. Another storyline here. However, Hamilton did get the ball going from after a Winnipeg drive going into the second quarter, but they were down 8-3 there. However, 30 seconds into the second quarter, Hamilton was able to get another Liam Harlow field goal from 47 yards, so it was 8-6 at Winnipeg early in the second quarter. So the game hasn't been blown open yet. However, Winnipeg definitely looked like they had the jump and they were the better team there. Winnipeg on the next drive, it took 4.5 minutes off the clock early in the second quarter, and Justin Medlock scored another field goal, 45 yards, so it's now 11-6 Winnipeg with 10 minutes to go in the second quarter there. So Hamilton's defense also was up to the task, I say, up to this point. Although I mentioned all the field goals that attempted up to this point were 40-plus yards here, so definitely they had to earn for their points early. So with about 10 minutes to go, Winnipeg was able to add to that lead when Chris Streveler, because it was still a little bit of a platoon system here. Zach Claros started and is the starter, but Chris Streveler came in, and Chris Streveler was in this play, who came in and he connected with Andrew Harris on an 18-yard passing play there, and then the point after widened the lead for Winnipeg, so it was 18-6 for Winnipeg late in the second quarter. After Hamilton had a 2-and-out here, Winnipeg was able to get another long drive to wind down the second quarter here, but this time they had to settle for a field goal. This time it was only a 17-yard field goal here, as Winnipeg was trying to take some points here before the half as they kicked a 17-yard field goal with 34 seconds left. So Winnipeg was able to extend their lead to 21-6, and that's how things stood at halftime for Keith Urban. And Keith Urban performed the Freedom Mobile halftime show here. And of all the Grey Cups that I went to personally here, this was the biggest lead that one team had going in. So it was looking good for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to finally end their lengthy drought here with a 24-6 lead going into halftime here. So as after Keith Urban performed an amazing show, which I got that video here, Winnipeg got the ball first in the second half here after they deferred in the first half here, but they did not. They actually got a 4-minute drive in and actually added another field goal here. This time 9 yards by Justin Budlock. So Winnipeg had a 24-6 lead, and they took 4.5 minutes to do that before Hamilton had the ball in the second half there. So Hamilton had some work to cut up for them if they were going to get back into this game and their 20-year drought. So you had a 29-year drought versus a 20-year drought. As Hamilton was driving down the field, they were faced in another, you guessed it, third and short situation with about 8.5 minutes to go. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers stopped them again on a 3rd and short here. So that was the second time that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defense stood up Winnipeg here. So that's definitely another huge storyline of this game. And then they stopped Hamilton at the Winnipeg 25-yard line. So Winnipeg, or Hamilton, came up short here as they were in Winnipeg territory there they could have get 3 yard, but it looked like it was third and short. More often than not, football teams go for it because 90% of the time they, or I should say 95% of the time, you're going to get it on a short yardage play there. But the odds definitely did not work for Winnipeg in this game. Although Winnipeg did not score on that turnover, but it still set a tone that Winnipeg meant business here. However, in the next drive, aided on a fake field goal to keep the drive going. Hamilton was faced with another third down, but I think it was about 3rd and 3, but they faked the field goal to keep the drive going. I wonder if those decisions of being stopped 3rd and short and being down by 18 or 16 points did that to them, but it was definitely a great play, and you got to applaud him for that. It was very gutsy, but eventually Hamilton connected on with Dane Evans when he found Braylon Addison on a 10-yard play here. However, they failed on the 2-point conversion to cut the lead down from 18 to 10. So it was 24-12 Winnipeg with just over 3 minutes to go in the third quarter here. So Hamilton did slowly crawl back, but they still have some work to do for them. Winnipeg with the ball drove the ball down into Hamilton territory and scored another field goal in the second quarter, this time from 41 yards. So ultimately, Winnipeg was able to maintain their 15-point lead as Hamilton scored 6 points on the touchdown with the failed 2-point conversion and 2 field goals by Winnipeg. So it was 27-12 for Winnipeg after the third quarter here. So Winnipeg still was up by 15 points here, and things were looking good that Winnipeg was seeking their first Grey Cup title since 1990 here. One factor that did hurt Hamilton in their bid here in the second half is that early in the third quarter here, Brandon Banks got injured on a play here and definitely did not return, and I think he needed surgery here, and Dane Evans definitely was not effective in terms of passing the ball here. I said this game was almost a lot like what I saw 2 weeks earlier, except it was colder and the other team was wearing red. That's what it looked like. Almost a carbon copy of the West semifinal, except I'm going to say Winnipeg looked more dominant in the Grey Cup than they did in the West semifinal against Calgary. So going on to the fourth quarter, after a couple punts in the first half, fourth quarter, Winnipeg appeared to score a touchdown about past the 7-minute mark or it was 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. It looked like Zach Collaros connected with Rasheed Bailey on a 14-yard pass here. However, the ball came loose as he was coming down here, and eventually, after a review there, after it looked like Winnipeg was celebrating, it was revealed to be an incomplete pass here. However, it was not all lost here, as Winnipeg did salvage that drive by scoring yet another field goal with a 17-yard field goal. So just like that, now it's 30-12 Winnipeg with 6.5 minutes to go here. On the next drive for Hamilton, they fumbled the ball and on the first play, and it got recovered by Jackson Jeffco here. So any hope of a comeback for Hamilton was definitely going down the drain here. And that was with 5.5 minutes to go here. Winnipeg on that drive, Justin Medlock was able to score another field goal here from the 18-yard line to make it 33-12 here. That actually tied a Grey Cup record, because I kept saying field goal here. So this tied actually a Grey Cup record for 6 field goals made on 7 attempts here. So Justin Medlock made some history here for field goal attempts here. So it was 33-12 here for Winnipeg late in the fourth quarter. Hamilton looking to make a game, but wasn't able to keep the drive going as they had yet another turnover and downs here, because they were getting to the point where they had to keep going for it on third down and had a turnover and downs here, and Winnipeg kept the ball on the ground to keep the clock running and got down to a minute and a half before Hamilton had the ball back there. And then Hamilton threw an interception that Mike Jones picked up an interception with 30 seconds left, and you could say the drought is over for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the drought continues for the Hamilton Tiger Cats as Winnipeg was able to run out the clock and they win the 107th Grey Cup 33-12 here. This overall was their 11th championship, but they were starving as they have not won the Grey Cup since 1990 here. So now the Hamilton Tiger Cats now are notorious for having the longest Grey Cup drought in the CFL here, as they have still been looking for their first Grey Cup since 1999 here. So you definitely, I mean, the score was definitely a lot wider than I would have wanted, and it was still a great game. It was still a great show by Keith Urban and the Beaches there. I definitely enjoyed the experience without my Stampeders being in it. And it was definitely great to, interact with all the fans, and I had to stay a little bit at the end there just because I was witnessing history here, and just tell Bomber fans it is real. You guys just won the Grey Cup, and I had to 5-5 them because Winnipeg fans put things in perspective when I was celebrating my team, and I didn't see that one guy that I saw when I saw in Vancouver, that at that time, this was 5 years ago, I was celebrating with joy that the Calgary Stampeders won the Grey Cup, and I watched them win it live, and it was my third Grey Cup at that time, and my first one out of town this year actually marked number 7. That guy told me he was a Winnipeg fan. He said he'd been to 24 Grey Cups, and he was still yet to see his team win it. So hopefully he was there, and that Chris Matthews story. He gets to wear pants now. Although, if you go search online, I think he's so used to wearing shorts now, but he says he's not going to make any more stupid bets here. So that's all the sidebars with this Grey Cup here. It was my consolation Grey Cup. I got the matchup to at least sell for if Calgary was going to be in it. So go over some numbers here. Well, Zach Collaros, he was 17 for 23. He had 170 yards there, so he moved the ball when he had to. Chris Streveler, he was 3 for 3 passing for 39 yards, including that one touchdown pass to Andrew Harris. Andrew Harris, he had a monster game here. On the ground here, he had 18 carries for 134 yards, including a touchdown here. Chris Streveler, he also had a good game on the ground. He had 9 carries for 30 yards there. And then Kenny Lawler for receiving, he had 3 catches for 53 yards. Nick Dembski had 4 catches for 45 yards. Andrew Harris, he had 5 catches for 35 yards, including that touchdown there. So definitely a lot of receivers took part in this game here on the defensive side of the ball, while Marcus Sales led the way with 6 tackles here. Jackson Jeffcoat had a pretty good game. He had 4 tackles, 2 sacks, including that forced fumble there, especially late in the game. Willie Jefferson, he had 2 tackles and 3 sacks, so he definitely got to see a lot of Dane Evans there. And then Mike Jones, Brandon Alexander each had an interception as well. And Justin Medlock, he was 6 for 7 on field goals, including 45-yard being the longest there. I should also mention here, I said history was being made that I was watching the Winnipeg win the Grey Cup here, and it took me 7 Grey Cups to get to see at least every team at least once. Winnipeg being the last team that I haven't seen in the Grey Cup. But Andrew Harris also made some history here, as he won the top Canadian and most outstanding player here. I mean, he definitely had that kind of performance. He's the first in Grey Cup history for one player to take both awards here. So congratulations to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers here. You guys definitely deserve it, and I hope you enjoy it. And I actually wasn't too upset. If I had to give up the Grey Cup title, my team, I didn't mind. It was going to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers under these circumstances here. However, we're going to be seeking it back in Regina next year. Just keep that in mind. So looking at the Hamilton side of the ball for their numbers here, Dane Evans, he was 16 for 27. He threw for 203 yards, threw for that 1 touchdown there, but he threw for 2 interceptions there. Terrell Sutton, he actually had a good game on the ground for a few fantasy points. He had 11 carries for 86 yards, and then Braylon Addison also had a running game of 4 carries for 45 yards there. So when it comes to receiving, well, actually Justin Hacklin led the receiving way with 5 in the game, with 5 catches for 88 yards. Brandon Banks, keep in mind this was in the first half because he got hurt early in the second half there. He had 6 catches for 72 yards. So that's definitely one guy I would like to see eventually get a Grey Cup ring. Especially when I had to feel for him just a little, where he looked like he returned that punt return late, but it was against my Calgary Stampeders, and that's why I only feel partially sorry for him, but he deserves a ring too, and hopefully he'll get one as well. And same with the Hamilton Tiger Cats fan base. And then Braylon Addison on receiving, he had 33 catches and 30 yards and 2 and a touchdown here. Kerry Brooks and Tunde Adeleke. I definitely missed Tunde Adeleke. Each had 6 tackles there. Simone Lawrence, he also had a pretty good game. He had 5 tackles, including a sack there, but I think he was trying to be a little easier sacking Zach Claros that time, because it was at the start of the year that actually Simone Lawrence had a bad hit on Zach Claros at the time when he was with Saskatchewan. So, and he eventually got sat out for 2 games for that. And then last Liam Hallerau, who had 2 field goals, good, 47 yards being the longest here. So that's recapping the 107th Grey Cup game there. And I'm going to say it. I definitely always still love going to the Grey Cup. Hopefully I'll get to go to number 8 in Regina next year. The only caveat that I think is going to hold me back is getting a hotel room. Hopefully I can be able to get a hotel room that isn't a sleazy motel where lowlifes go, and not pay $1,000 a night for a $100 a night room because to take advantage of the Grey Cup. And if my Hail Mary, no football pun intended, is try to stay with relatives or friends if it comes down to that. But at the Grey Cup Festival, organizers say next year that rooms will open up in the new year, and hopefully I'll get to do this again in Regina here. So to before I can close out and put a bow on season 2 of my Calgary Stampeders this month. With the advent of a lot of one-year contracts here in football, you could say about 80 to almost 90% of the league are all free agents here. So I still think Calgary is going to be a contending team because we got Bo. As long as we have Bo, I feel like we have a chance here. And hopefully I don't see any changes. The only changes so far in the coaching staff is apparently there's a coaching cap here, and that Pete Costanza, the receivers coach, actually was let go or agreed to part ways for that reason there. And then the other thing I can guarantee you right now is there at least going to be 3 new head coaches in the league next year. As Devon Claybrooks, he was fired from his position in BC. Rick Campbell was fired from his head coaching position in Ottawa, and eventually the Edmonton Eskimos decided to move on from Jason Moss here. And as we know right now, apparently actually Ryan Dinwiddie, the quarterbacks coach for Calgary, and Mark Killam, the assistant and special teams coach for Calgary, they're both being interviewed for the Ottawa Red Blacks job here. And which, if that happens, let's say if one or both of them move on to Ottawa here, which will raise speculation on who's going to be the backup quarterback for Calgary next year, as we got Bo for another 3 years after this season. Nick Arbuckle, he's a free agent, and he's expressed interest that he wants to be a starter, and he's probably going to have that opportunity. And if Mark Killam and Ryan Dinwiddie, let's say, go to Ottawa, there's definitely speculation that Nick Arbuckle is going to be off to Ottawa. But I think he definitely isn't going to be back, and then we definitely should look at upgrading the running game here. I mean, we definitely struggle in that category. Apparently, Don Jackson has said he's going to test free agency, so I don't think he's going to be back. I mean, I like Romar Morris, but he was hurt. He actually managed to play a couple games. Kadeem Carey looked good when he played. And then Anti Milonovich leader, he's just there for power. I wouldn't count on him to be a full-time running back because he's a tank, but he's not fast. But there's no knock on him. It's just how he's built. He's definitely great to throw in on fake special teams plays and that, and you know, just to throw the opposition off and get a tank in there. But that's some question marks there. You got to wonder, you know. I think unless, you know, Mark Killam and Ryan Dinwiddie go to Ottawa, I don't expect any changes in their coaching staff, but you never know. I like the coaching staff we have in place here. I mean, you know, you got to wonder. I mean, Reggie Bagleton, we definitely got to keep him, but you know, no knock on him if he's going to try looking at the NFL here. But Yeah, there's a lot of question marks here just because of, if you look on the league website, I think every team at least has like 30 plus players that are free agents here, and you know, a lot can change. I mean, a couple years ago, Hamilton was a doormat, and here they were 50-3 and were in the Grey Cup, and I mean, Montreal was able to turn around, and speaking of Montreal, they were able to lock up Kari Jones as head coach. Well, no brainer there. So, I mean, I think the next video I'll talk about the CFL. I think I might chime in after free agency, unless something huge happens. I mean, you just never know, but I just feel like we're still going to be a competitive team because we still got John Huffnagel as general manager making decisions, and he's able to find a way to plug in our roster, keep us a competitive team. I mean, heck, back in 2012, I mean, after when we decided to move on from Henry Burris and traded him to Hamilton, and we got Kevin Glenn, Calgary happened to sign this guy named Bo Levi Mitchell, and I saw that name like, wow, that's a cool name for a quarterback in Calgary. And you know, the rest has been history with Bo Levi Mitchell, and at least he's locked up, and I think, you know, he's definitely going to still give us hope. I mean, he still has 3 more years left, and you know, he despite, you know, stinking up to join, unfortunately, the Western semifinal here, we definitely got someone special here that is going to, if he keeps doing what he does, I expect a few more Grey Cups and a few more MLPs, and he'd be looked upon as one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in the Canadian Football League. And, you know, he could be our Ricky Ray or Anthony Calvillo, or have a longer tenure with Doug Flutie. You know, those great quarterbacks in the past, or Winnipeg, they won their Grey Cups early in history with Kenny Payne here. I think Bo Levi Mitchell's going to be that guy for Calgary that we can look back on down the road as, man, it was great when we had Bo Levi Mitchell as quarterback. And a perfect name for Calgary Stampeders quarterback, but that's just speculating, being hypothetical here. But yeah, I mean, thanks for watching along, and will I be back for a 3rd season? Well, we'll see. We'll just see how this YouTube journey continues here. But, you know, thanks for watching along. It would have been nice if we would have won the Grey Cup at home this year. And I don't think Calgary's going to host a Grey Cup game anytime soon until we need a stadium, because it's becoming more and more obvious that I have many memories at McMahon's Stadium, but I'm definitely ready for either a new McMahon's Stadium or a new, whatever we're going to call the new home of the Calgary Stampeders, especially in those concourses. You know, you're walking like this, and you know, you need to really need to go to the bathroom to go, or must really want that extra beer or food, because if you decide to do that at McMahon, you're going to miss half the game, and that's unacceptable in today's stadium environment, because in other places I can do that and not miss too many plays, especially if you can still watch the play as you wait in line there, and you can't do that at McMahon. But that's a whole nother story here. But I mean, it was definitely a great season, and of course I definitely enjoyed the Grey Cup, and you know, we'll see if I'll be back for a 3rd season here, and hopefully you know, we'll restart for 2020, and hopefully things will work out that I'll be going to Regina next year for the 108th Grey Cup. And you know what? We want to get that cup back. Enjoy it now, Winnipeg, but we want that cup back. Make sure you give it back to us in one piece. I see you guys enjoyed it too much. It came in 2 pieces at the airport. We had it broken already when we went in 2014 there, but yeah, but and then if you notice, that's a new Grey Cup now, because when I was at Calgary at the BMO Center, the Grey Cup that used to had for many years there is now retired, and it was right inside the case there. So so there's a new Grey Cup now that's being enjoyed. So so yeah, thanks for watching, and go Stamps go, and I'll see you in the next video here.